Hey, it's Bluebird on your shoulder. This is Josh. I am alone this week. We are experiencing some technical difficulties with people's personal lives, and I am still recovering from lower back surgery. So we're going to see how I do. I'm sorry I'm a day late, but we're going to go through pretty much everything that's happened over the past week. I'll add in a couple updates as I go along. Today we're going to talk about basically the domestic concerns I have over the administration and how they are trying to consolidate power while keeping us distracted with a war overseas. We're also going to talk about the amount of conflict that we're seeing today with reports from intelligence communities, um, news channels, and the administration, especially in regard to Trump's Wednesday speech that he gave. My main point about today is what we're doing right now is setting precedent for our country going forward. And what is that going to mean when it comes to how we understand our Constitution, the way that we understand governance and civility? I am more than uh, concerned with the Constitution at this point. And I think that some of the bodies that have been influenced to follow Trump are starting to as well. All right, so first off, let's talk about China and how they have just announced that one of their robotics companies can make up to 10,000 humanoid um, robots in 1 year. That's 10,000. When they bring that up to scale, they're creating armies every year. Also, in Peru, we've seen that municipalities have started to give legal rights to pollinators to exist. So, what that means is that legal precedent for autonomy and human rights being applied to a body of insects, and that is the first time that we've ever seen that. So, hopefully, that will translate to a broader discussion of pollinators and their role in keeping our ecosystems thriving or at least surviving. All right, so back to the drama. All right, leadership change. We've seen Hegseth has removed um, the the highest ranking military officer uh, from the DoD. This is going to clearly result in some inability for that machine to run as smoothly as it should, especially crazy during an armed conflict, declared war. We've also seen that Trump went ahead and dismissed Pam Bondi finally. That was long overdue, but her replacement, Blanche, I think, is not anything better. He is Trump's personal lawyer, made the head of the DOJ. That's not going to result in anything good. Um, Also, to shake up a cabinet during a declared war is, especially at the beginning of a declared war, is just showing how little this man is able to understand how important stability is um, in his internal administration during a time like this when he needs the American people to be on board with his actions right now. The other thing that goes along with Pam Bondi is the questions about whether or not she perjured herself during sworn testimony, and whether or not that was something that was identified as a risk for Trump that led him to his decision to fire her. Also, anybody that leaves to go to the private sector abruptly was fired. So don't don't let the language of that confuse you. At the same time, the Donald decided that he was going to sign another executive order that demands a voter roll list of legal voters from the different states. This is another attempt for him to federalize elections in order to manipulate them, and he is looking at ways that he can either reject votes, invalidate, or intimidate. Um, the problem with that is that I think it was about 17 states have capitulated to this. There are plenty of lawsuits going on right now, but what we're seeing is the way for the federal government to create lists that go beyond just um, the different categorizations that they are able to make based off of our public data. The Constitution is very clear about this issue, and um, it's looking like the court agrees. The states are to control the time, place, and manner of elections. Um, but as of right now, Congress is the only one that can alter um, that by law. Decentralization has always been a safeguard against federal administrative manipulation. All right, so when it comes to Trump and his speech on Wednesday, um, bombing anybody back to the Stone Ages is crass and inappropriate language that only serves to inflame propaganda against America and create a situation where the Iranian populace, as well as anybody that identifies with them, feels pushed away from the American excuse for entering into this conflict. When it comes to having a populace against an invading force, that typically results in it going very poorly. We can look at Korea, Vietnam, and the like as examples of how invading forces that push the civilian populace to the cause of the resistance leads to high casualty rates among the invaders. Also, we see that a lot of his claims have been either um, proved wrong or have been um, contradicted by our own intelligence as well as intelligence of our allies. Things like the fact that we're completely overbearing Iran while they continue to strategically hit specific targets across the Middle East, including areas of countries that are supporting or allowing our um, unprovoked aggression. Right now, he is stating that the missiles, the missile program that Iran has is completely debilitated. Yet the other day, or right after that, Iran sent 200 missile, or I'm sorry, 100 missiles and 200 drones at Tel Aviv, knocking out a drone uh, a drone warehouse facility, as well as hitting some of uh, their desalination and other refineries. So they are still operating and hitting back, almost tick for tat for the things that we are going out of our way to hit them. Things like soft targets and even civilian targets at this point. As far as intelligence goes, we're seeing that intelligence come out that says that about 50% of Iran's missile launching capabilities um, are still active, despite I think it was around 12,000 um, missiles that we've lobbed at them. That includes short range missiles that are used for ship systems and threatening the shipping lanes to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, which has been going through some shifting over the past couple of days. We've seen they have Iran has allowed um, China, France, and a few others to receive or to release their tankers to move through the strait. Basically, it looks like they are rewarding anybody that has deterred American um, combat through them, whether it be their airspace or using their bases to launch from, things of that nature. Um, then yesterday, what we saw was another contradiction to President Trump's assertions that we have complete air superiority over Iran when an F-15 was shot down. The crew ejected, and one of the pilots was recovered. However, the second is still at large. We don't know if they survived or if they've been captured. But as of right now, they have not been recovered. Also, there was an A-10 that was hit and lost over waters in the Arabian Peninsula, um, and the pilot was recovered as well. But both of those look to have been downed by Iranian fire. So that serves as a political boiling point for Trump as his assertions are being proved wrong. It also it also means that Iran is being conservative in the way that they're um, attacking us. They're not just trying to use up all of their munitions um, and the such, so that America can then, you know, not only soften us but also empty um, their munition stores, so that we have an easier time walking in. I don't think that right now America is looking favorably at a ground assault, though we have 7,500 troops that are being moved into place to be able to invade. Iran again has asserted that they have 1 million soldiers that are willing to fight and die for Iran. And with us continuing to hit uh, civilian targets and targets that are um, disallowed by the Geneva Conventions, that can be translated um, into war crimes, um, is something that we really all should be very worried about. with the with the Iranian strikes and the ability for them to shoot down our aircraft, this also signals that Iran has not a degraded um, top of their command and control, which is what they've asserted. The administration has asserted that we've knocked out all of their leadership and they have no command and control over their military. This is just not the case based off of all of the evidence that we're seeing. And Iran has been fairly upfront about what they've lost and where they're at militarily. So every time that we've struck, um, one of their apartment buildings or a school or their nuclear site, they've returned fire in a measured way. Um, we hit one of their desalination plants and they struck. I think I said Israel's, but it might have been Saudi's, where Saudi Arabia, um, you know, uses those desalination plants a lot more than we do. But I think that when when we look at the tit for tat, Iran is not necessarily escalating; they're just hitting targets that hurt our allies more than what we're hurting them. But at the same level of target. So when it comes to um, you know the oil refineries and things like that. The next thing that's been on my mind a lot is the amount of large missile expenditure. The fact that they're stating that we've sent over 12,000 missiles at them. These are intercontinental ballistics that are definitely destroying a lot of infrastructure and different types of costly things, which is basically just costing everybody a lot of money. I looked at the cost for the missiles that we're talking about. Some of these missiles, excuse me, are cost up to $150 million a piece. With that, at 12,000, all that being a conservative number, 1.5 kind of being a median number between the 800,000 to 2.3 million, or I'm sorry, uh, 1 point or yeah, 800,000 to 2 2.3 billion dollars a piece. That puts us at a range of about 150 million. With 12,000 of those, that makes 1.8 trillion dollars. That's 1.8 trillion dollars just for munitions that we've lobbed. So, and we're already seeing that is putting a strain on different aspects of our military and our effectiveness in a long term conflict. This has been a very random aggression that doesn't seem like it's been planned out very good. We've been planning these types of um, interactions with Iran for 40 years now, and you would think that we would have had very a very strategic list of targets and a plan for how we were going to um, react to certain escalations and how we were going to neutralize the Iranian threat. Um, it's unfortunate to me that we are the aggressors in this. This has officially been evaluated as an unprovoked aggression um, on a sovereign nation, which could be considered a war crime in itself. And then both sides have committed war crimes by targeting civilian structures and infrastructure that um, could lead to civilian death unnecessarily. The rule of war and the Geneva Conventions are put in place to identify those that are uncivilized. And even though we aren't part of the ICC, um, which I find to be ironic and pretty um, disheartening, as an American, I think that we should be um, if we're going to state that we stand up for human rights and that we're the shining city on a hill, then we need to back that up. And that also includes being willing to accept responsibility when we don't adhere to the rules and don't live up to that expectation. One thing that I think that Congress needs to make sure that they're doing is taking a look at defense contractors and the incentive system that is put into place um, to pay these companies that lobby for things like um, expanded drone design and use of long range ballistics, because they're the ones that are profiting enormously from this. The amount of materials that are just being thrown at each side, trying to blow each other up, is phenomenal. And I think that with any unprovoked conflict like this, we have to look at why we were pushed in that direction. And there's clearly been no real reason given, but Netanyahu sure seems to be excited every time he makes a statement these days about his American friends. So I really think that we, as a society, need to take a real hard look at that relationship and realize that the state of Israel has committed genocide, multiple war crimes, and now they are moving on to doing that in Lebanon. Uh, they have displaced over 1 million people, and they have invaded Lebanon with the intention of creating a quote unquote buffer zone um, for them, similarly to what they did with Gaza um, and Palestine, wherein they moved in settlers who then ransacked and pushed out the indigenous people to the point where um, they're they're committing slow genocide as well as large scale genocide right now. Um, 1 million people displaced with their homes being absolutely obliterated. That is Israel's language. They're planning on destroying all of their homes so that they have nowhere to go back to. Will lead to a genocidal level of death just from that. Um, the amount of children and elderly that die from displacement on a large scale like that, the amount of people that get sick and die because of dysentery and disease passing through camps like that is staggering. Um, so these are humanitarian crises that are all happening with us kind of being the bully in the sky throwing rocks at everybody that we want to, so that Israel can do whatever they want. So, with that being said, the American people overwhelmingly don't support this aggression. The Congress refuses to take it up to even consider it. Trump is asking for $1.5 trillion for uh, this year's military budget. That is an increase from the $600,000 or 600 billion that he asked for an increase of last year. So, in essence, when we should have been lowering our military budget to about 500 billion as a way to streamline our military during peacetime and to consolidate forces in a way that made sense, we instead reduced our personnel by 20% and almost doubled our budget. And now he wants to increase it by another 50% on top of that. So we went from finally being able to um, have a military that was in a preparing phase, rather a war footing, um, to having a lot more money for seemingly defense contractors and the materials that they provide us, as we reduce the amount of soldiers that we had to actually wage war. And then we started following Israel's their lead in going after somebody who hasn't really been a problem for us. There's zero evidence that the accusations that we've made against Iran are true. They're entitled to having a nuclear um, energy program, and they have agreed that they're not going to pursue nuclear weapons, and there's zero evidence to the contrary. So, except for our own explicit bias against them, not wanting to believe that they could possibly be a peaceful people because Israel told us that they're not. Oh, um, I think that, again, while the UN doesn't have the teeth to enforce um, the um, the violations of law, I think that we as an American people need to make sure that it is handled in house, at least, if not joining back with the UN and strengthening our resolve to following the rules that we developed after World War II. Uh, and Congress needs to step up to the plate and actually decide if we're going to be in this conflict. Our representatives need to speak on our behalf so that when the midterms come up this year, we have the information that we need to make a decision on whether or not they are representing us. And we need to demand that from all of our representatives. We should all be emailing our representatives daily. There are places that you can go to that will find who your representative is, and they will give you a canned email that you can send to them every day, just telling them that you want them to vote on a war um, that Congress didn't declare, that the president specifically is not allowed to declare and already has. So let's look at why we're doing this now. For the past month, the amount of discussion surrounding the Epstein files has dropped dramatically. We are seeing more files being released without anybody being arrested or convicted inside America. We are seeing things happening outside of America, but inside of America, nobody is being held to account. There have been no new investigations opened up that anybody is aware of, and the the public narrative and discussion around a powerful pedophile ring like this that was filled with people that dictated how our society looked at beauty, sex, um, even what success was, and what that entailed with young, beautiful women on the arms of, somebody has become synonymous with success. And the fact that we're unwilling to break that down as a society into acceptable and unacceptable um, outlines for us, and understand that we have been manipulated into believing that that was is normal, and that it should be allowed to continue in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's not, 15-year-old girls, it should be a discussion that we're having about sexual exploitation of people, the sexualization of young people, um, and that conversation needs to be earnest. But with these distractions and um, this constant drum of loud and irritating, outlandish things, all the way up to declaring war, when he said that he was the no war president, is all just very telling to me of why, or of the fact that he really doesn't want that conversation to happen. Also, this if this isn't if he's not penalized for this, then then the executive branch has gone one step farther than they ever have, where we've seen lots of armed conflicts. We've seen authorization after the fact of Congress allowing a president to declare war. All of those things have happened with, Vietnam, Iran Contra, uh, Central America, uh, you know, all the Middle East conflicts that we've had, especially over the last 25 years. All of that was manipulated to be okay after the fact. Um, we now know that, Bush Jr. was pulled into believing the lies that were told to him in order to feel justified in putting us in that war, and then Congress followed suit. Um, and then, but this time it is clear that there was no um, immediate threat. We were not defending ourselves, and he declared war without Congress even being willing to take up the conversation. So these are all things that have created a precedent where the president can and did declare war without congressional authorization. And that all that does is, you know, continue to consolidate power to the administration, and without consequence allows them to continue to do what they want unimpeded. And that is not how our Constitution was built. That is not how checks and balances are supposed to work, and is not what the American people have authorized um, this two-party system to capitulate to. So, with that being said, we need to have a conversation about what legal constraints will still apply, and if there's ever going to be a discussion within Congress, the body that passes laws, to develop guardrails against this kind of escalation um, and damage to our economy, to um, our standing in the world, and to our moral authority. If we don't do that, then people like Pam Bondi, um, are going to move into the private sector and never have to look back at the damage that they did to the moral fabric and the rule of law that we want to pride ourselves on. And all of that happening while an unjustified war is going on, innocent people are being killed, and we are putting ourselves in danger as we create more enemies that we didn't previously have, is all very dangerous. That being said, I think that the thing that we really need to be focused on is this executive order where he is trying to get a list of legal voters throughout our country. To me, that signals um, a consolidation of information that can be used against the American people. And I am very concerned about the midterms and how he plans to stay in power, despite every poll showing um, that he is the absolute worst president in history, or at least the least liked, the least supported. And are we going to see that reflected in the midterms, or is he going to be successful in manipulating some way to be able to stay in power? I don't see that possibility happening without there being a cheat, a fraud, a use of power that represses people's votes. A gerrymander like we've never seen before, a filter of who can and can't vote based off of uh, their demographic and their party affiliation, would be a complete degradation of the Constitution, and would put us in such a constitutional crisis that I think that domestic violence would be the only course of action that we would have, um, unless the courts really like join the fight, and the military was willing to back it up, because the the concerns I have about Hegseth and the fact that he's fired over 15 of our top officers, um, that they have been instituting loyalty tests and religious language into um, motivating troops, is all very telling of um, either the move into a dictatorship or a military coup. to overthrow our government. Um, and I'm really scared for the soul of our country right now. So, anyways, I'm sorry for being a day late. I'm still on pain meds, so I hope this all made sense. I have been working diligently to try to push out some more of our content. So if you start seeing it, please share it. Please like and subscribe. Please, please, please. Comment, give us some feedback. We need all of that in order to know how to grow and move forward, so that we can keep doing this, and so that we know that people are hearing us. If we're just speaking into each other's ear, then we're not really a bluebird on your shoulder, are we? Have a great week. Again, we'll be back on Friday next week, and I hope you guys are safe. Okay.